Hey, everybody, welcome back to Conversations in Pop Culture as we are back in the saddle once again for another season. And before I introduce my guest, I want to remind everybody that this episode is brought to you by my friend Preston Poulter's Palace of the Golden Princess, which offers a fun, sexy romp through a fantasy RPG setting run by women. Issue 3 launches soon on Kickstarter, and Preston's doing me a pretty solid favor here, where he's actually offering a free PDF of issue 1 if you sign up for his email list at pocketjackcomics.com so you could actually try before you buy. But that's enough of Preston's book. It's a good book, everybody. You should go at least try it. Sign up for the email. It's going to cost you nothing. But I have with me amazing comic creator, owner of Big Dog Inc., Tom Hutchison. So we're back, man.
Yeah. What, how many times is this? I'm still the most, right?
Oh, you're tied. You're tied. I think six, maybe seven.
Okay.
You're up there. You're up there.
Mm-hmm.
We get jackets at 10.
Okay. All right.
For our books, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so welcome back to the show.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so obviously you got a lot of stuff going on. It's day one of BD13 anthology, celebrating 13 years of Big Dog Inc. Obviously a big anniversary. But before we get into this Kickstarter, I want to catch everybody up on what Big Dog Inc. is, the short version, because you've been
we
on.
We make comics. That's as short. That's as short as it gets. We make comics. Done. Over with. So I'm Tom. I'm the writer, publisher, art director, sales guy, traveling salesman, shipping guru. I make all the campaigns. I do everything that is not the artistic side of it all. So we've been doing this now for 13 years. Our first two books in 2010 were Penny for Your Soul and Critter, which we're also celebrating during this little campaign that is an anthology book, sort of covering multiple titles that we do, but then some of the covers that we have expand outwards beyond just those stories. So we're kind of trying to encompass as much, of all Big Dog Inc. as we can into this one little project. But yeah, we've been doing this for 13 years, 4 years on our own, 3 years with Aspen Comics, and then the last 7 years, I guess, 6 years on our own, using Kickstarter as our primary, distribution method.
Yeah, and then obviously just to name a few titles, you have Penny for Your Soul, you have your Oz title, you have Critter, obviously, and then there's a few others that you've done. Ursula Minor,
Kaiju Epic, Scheherazade, Antoinette. We have our new shark book, It's Only an Island If You Look at It from the Water. We have our Gladiator book for next year called Sand and Scales. We do our annual Goth Day series now, Princesses versus Zombies. So yeah, we're busy.
And the reason why I bring all this up is that obviously when you've been in business for 13 years, it's a big deal at this point. And I think it's very important, in my opinion, that we recognize companies that have made it for 13 years. Because the average company in America does not even make it past year one.
Sure.
And it's a big deal. And that number goes further and further down once you get to 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. And I think it's very important that people realize, especially in comics and creatives, that 13 years is a big deal, 10 years is a big deal, 15 years is a big deal. And so I think it's very important that people sort of get that idea that you've been around.
Yeah, I mean, not to rag on publishers and stuff, but in our 13 years, I mean, there are dozens of publishers that have come and gone in our time. And while we've never reached like any sort of high levels of diamond sales or the comic book media never wants to talk to us no matter what we're doing. The one thing that we have going for us is that we're still here, we're still going, and we're not just doing one book or two books or three books. Like literally I have 14 different titles, and that doesn't include all the little spin-offs that we do, like Penny for Your Soul had a Joan of Arc spin-off and so on. So there's value in just simply hanging around. And you don't have to be exploding through the glass ceiling to be successful. And Kickstarter has allowed us to really change what we do and how we do it, why we do it in some cases. And you know, we're still here. I mean, we're already planning 2 years ahead, 2025, our 15-year anniversary. We're already planning 2026 for what's coming next. So, this isn't a matter of us being sort of fly by night, or, these guys don't produce any kind of product. Like, we're producing product all the time. It's not like 3 or 4 issues a month like we used to do, but we always have books, we always have content, we always have projects, and we're still here.
So let me ask you this, because I'm actually very curious. Do you think that to some degree publishing has changed, and even how you put out content has changed, where, before you needed to be, I guess, balls to the wall. And now, because media, in my opinion, is very fragmented,
Mhm.
and it's anybody, and the barriers are down, I think is a safe assumption in comics, where anybody can do this,
Yep.
that you just have to almost survive to the next month and the next month after that. And if you do that year after year after year, and I think if you're profitable and you continuously put out books, you're gonna get to year 5, year 10, year 15. And do you think that that sort of is the new, I guess, I don't want to say the model, but sort of the trend, I guess might be the way to put it?
Well, yeah. I mean, the old way doesn't work anymore. There's no methodology that says I'm gonna spend thousands upon thousands of dollars on a comic. I'm gonna hope that Diamond Distributor or Lunar or whoever will take me. Then I'm gonna hope that a retailer decides to buy me and put it on the shelf. And then I'm gonna hope that somebody at the far end of that chain finds it on a shelf in a comic book store somewhere and takes a book home for $4. That's a non-existent, impossible chain of events anymore. So we dumped it. We went away from it. We had the choice to go back to Diamond or start using Kickstarter and go and deal direct to customer. And that was absolutely the right choice, because the comic book retail market is in continuing decline across the board from the top to the bottom. And the system as it was in the 80s and 90s and 2000s, it just doesn't work for the way that the world works anymore. And so we have to now take advantage of everything that we can do to corral people to just kind of watch what we do, rather than telling them, oh, our book is out in comic book stores, and then they go to a comic book store and it's not on the shelf. And why is it on the shelf? Because random comic book store decided not to buy it. It doesn't work. So it's a new era right now. It's the Wild West right now. All sorts of crowdfunding and social media stuff like Patreon and Substack and all that kind of stuff. It changes the way creators can create, and they can do it from themselves. They don't have to do it for corporations, which that's when you get really genuinely good attempts at new stories and new characters and stuff, because there's no corporate entity going, you can't do that. It's just a creator going, I don't do whatever I want. And that's kind of what we do.
Yeah, let's kind of dive into this, because obviously Big Dog Inc. has created a lot of characters and created a lot of worlds. And this Kickstarter in particular is an anthology,
Mhm.
and it plays in those worlds in a lot of ways. And
Mhm.
my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong about your Kickstarter, is that it's a 40-page anthology with 3 different stories written by you, Pat Chan, and
Stephanie Menard.
Stephanie Menard. Thank
Mhm.
you. And it kind of captures 3 different areas of Big Dog Inc.
Mhm.
Something from obviously, Yeehaw Vampires.
Yeah,
Something
we
from,
have. So
yeah.
I'm writing Yeehaw Vampires. That's a spinoff from Ursa Minor. Pat is writing Slipstream. That's a spinoff from the Critterverse. And then Stephanie is writing Princesses versus Zombies. That's a spinoff from Princesses versus Zombies. So yeah.
So let's actually talk about this. So where did even this idea come from to do an anthology that, in my opinion, captures a good chunk of, I guess, the heart of Big Dog Inc., but also
Yeah.
is new material. And
Yeah.
so it's familiarity, but it's something new too, because that's kind of, I feel, the trick right now on Kickstarter, and why people with graphic novels are struggling is they're dealing with that, I guess, quagmire.
I wanted to do something that gave me a book that I could, sell and ultimately put on the convention table or whatever, that was a good mix of just things, just different things, so that when someone's buying it, they're getting a sense of, some of the stuff that we do. It is kind of a weird selection because it's not our key pieces. Like, it should have been maybe Critter and Oz and Penny for Your Soul, but because those books already kind of have their existing fan base, I wanted to do something for some of the other books that we're trying to build. And then at the same time, I knew that it would be cool to get, because I always have people asking me if they can write for us, and I'm like, well, I don't really do anything, that I could just like hand off. But in the case of a book like this, I was like, yeah, we could do this. And so I immediately I was like, Pat, I got to talk to Pat, because I hadn't worked with him in a long time. So I messaged him and I told him what we were doing, and I said, you can basically choose whatever you want to do. And he was like, well, I want to do more Slipstream, because he had written Slipstream like 10 years ago for us as a one shot. So he wanted to do more Slipstream. I was like, cool, that's great. That's a very obscure character. That's sort of the point of what we're trying to do here. So go for it. And then I knew I was going to do the Yeehaw Vampires book. And then I kind of figured, let's do the third piece as a lead into something else that we're going to do later in the year, which is Princesses versus Zombies. So I was like, well, let's introduce the fifth princess in this book, and then that'll lead us to what we're going to do in November. And so Stephanie Menard, I've known her for many, many years. She's a great writer, and she's talked about, hey, let's, if you ever need me, I can write. And I was like, cool, this is the opportunity. Stephanie, do you want to write PVZ? And she was like, oh yeah, I want to write this. So I was like, awesome, there it is, we're done. And so they each wrote, we all wrote 10-page stories. The other remaining pages will be filled up with, we have some stretch goals in the campaign. So we'll be unlocking some additional pinup art that will go into the book. So when we get to stretch goal number 2, that'll be the first one. And what we're going to do is let the backers vote on who the character will be. So that way, again, we get a little more broad depth of our characters put into the book. So there won't be Ursa Minor or princesses or Slipstream as part of the voting. It'll be Antoinette, Lights Camera Jungle, Kaiju Epic, so that they can vote on the ones that they want, and then they're going to get additional, characters and content that way. So that's sort of the general issue of it.
There's a lot of stuff to talk about here and break this down. So one of the things that I think is really interesting is that it is an anthology. And what I like about anthology books is that if I don't like a particular story, but there's 2 or 3 others in there, if a story falls flat or I don't like that story, I can still get the other 2, or one of those stories can help to really sell the book.
Sure.
So if somebody's a fan of Critter, they might not necessarily be a fan of, Ursa Minor,
Right.
but they're going to buy the book anyway, and they get exposure to that story, and they say, hey, maybe I do like this.
That's the whole thing right there, is the hope that you can start to transition buyers of one book to another book. Yeah.
And then the other thing that I think is really interesting is that you're also putting a spotlight on certain things that maybe haven't gotten attention. And I go back to wrestling, where sometimes you need to put a spotlight on a wrestler who's been buried for a while, because you need to build him up 6 months out or a year out so that he can get and be in the main event at a pay-per-view. And so it's very interesting where sometimes you have to, I guess, put a book or start getting a book hot and then sort of take a book off, I guess, the stove and let it cool down a little bit. Or if the Oz stuff is sustainable, it doesn't need, the stove to burn, but maybe Critter does need that. Or maybe, Ursa Minor needs that for the time being. So what is that like, really managing all of that? Because I think it's a real skill to understand what properties need attention when and where.
Yeah. Well, the Yeehaw Vampires book came about from the Ursa Minor series that we were doing. Brian Peterson did a cover for our Lost Girls series, where we're taking 80s characters and turning them into vampires. And so he did like a Daisy Duke vampire girl on a cover. And it was, as soon as I saw it, I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. And then as I started to show it to other people, I could see that this was genuinely like something that they were latching onto. And so my brain started working like, okay, I think this needs to be a thing. Somehow I have to turn it into a story. I don't know where or when or how, but I started to develop it almost immediately. And then when we came around to the idea of the anthology, I was like, this is it. That's the perfect dropping point, because we'll be coming out of Ursa Minor and getting that sort of, final piece of the puzzle. And then we'll have two other books that are lead-in books to what we're doing this year and next year. Slipstream is part of the Critterverse, which comes back in January. And then Princesses versus Zombies, we get the second official issue in November. So it all really worked together. And again, it's characters that, there's 4 first appearances in this book. Daisy and Dawn are the vampire girls. Jasmine is the princess. And there's a bad guy, a villain in Slipstream that has a first appearance. So this is also a key issue in that you have 4 first appearances in the book as well. So it's fun, and I think it's going to be interesting for people. I think that we have enough overlap from book to book that people won't be too turned off. Like if they like the horror stuff with Princesses and Ursa, I think they'll still be okay with Slipstream, but you never know, and that's always sort of the risk with an anthology. But I think ultimately we have enough overlap in our Venn diagrams that we should be okay.
Yeah, and then I said it before. What I like about anthologies is that I picked up anthologies and I didn't like half the book in the anthology that I picked up, but I like the other half.
Yeah,
but I still picked up the book because I couldn't separate the pages. So
right.
it's like I'm not gonna go rip a book, everybody. But I think it's very important because somebody might not like Critter, but they love Ursa Minor and they want to know more about these vampires. And then, well, if it's still there, they'll read it. And I think it's really important, especially when you're testing markets. And I also think it's interesting because, there's new fans coming in all the time. And anthologies, to certain degrees, I feel are samplers sometimes for a new fan to say, what is this? And, now they can get a sense through 3 stories of what Big Dog Inc. offers. Because it is sometimes tricky, I feel, to get somebody in, your thing, especially when there's a lot of good product out there.
Yep, that's true. It's very true.
And then the other thing that I want to talk about is you handing over writing, because that's kind of, I think, a big deal. Because I don't know if you've done this before briefly or it's been a while. I think where I know you've done Ursa Minor, I know you wrote a lot of Critter, I know you've done a bunch of the Oz stuff. But what is this like to hand over writing to Pat Chan and Stephanie and be like, hey guys, have at it, and your take on it, because they're going to have a very different writing style than you do, Pat, and you do not have the same writing style.
Sure. Yeah. I've done this before. So it was, in fact, Pat got to do Slipstream as part of the Critter spinoff series that we did 4 of those. So we had 4 different writers writing 4 of those books to help expand the Critterverse. We've had people write portions of Oz. We've had people write small portions of Ursa Minor. Scheherazade is written by my editor, Carrie Castor. So, 90% of what we do at Big Dog Inc. I write, but we've definitely had people, come in and do this. So it wasn't really like that difficult anymore. Now that I kind of have that under my belt as, okay, this is how it works. This is how this is the result of it. I was like, yeah, this is fine. This is fine. Like, no one is ever going to write Critter. That will be the book that I will write eternally myself. But I have no problem handing off some of the characters, to have their own adventures through the eyes of other writers. So no, I have no problem with that at all.
I find it interesting in which that, again, no, I am not in this position ever. So I don't know from my perspective how I would feel. But I find it interesting when.
Yeah. Early it was weird. It was like, because in my brain, I'm like, well, I want to write that and I want to write that and I want to write that. But it's interesting because I just saw a documentary on Chris Claremont. And in the documentary, he talked about this exact same thing where he was writing the X-Men and Marvel wanted to expand the X-Men, like with New Mutants and things like that. And he was like, well, okay, but I want to do it. I mean, I've written all this stuff, so I want to do it. So he wrote the Magic miniseries. He wrote the New Mutants. He just kept writing everything, and it reached a point where he was like, "Oh, I can't keep doing it because they just keep wanting more and more and more and more." So one of his editors, Louise Simonson, came in and started becoming one of the writers. They took some of that off of his plate. So, but that also helped the entire brand expand. You got different voices on the book. You got different sort of thought processes on the books. It allowed the entire X-Men brand to expand because it wasn't 8 books relying on one dude writing them. So it's kind of the same way here now. It's like, okay, the Critterverse, like, okay, I'm going to write Critter. No one's going to write Critter. That's just going to be what it is. But we have such a huge universe for her to play around in that it's so easy to just let other writers be like, oh, what is Yellow Jacket doing? What's Cricket doing? What's Tomcat doing? Like, let's tell some of those stories on the side. And then again, that's brand expansion. So the Critterverse starts to grow beyond just the one timeline that we have for her series.
So let's even go further into that, because I have a very interesting view on writers and artists, where I think writers and artists have become brands to certain degrees.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
So I think when you have, and we'll use Pat as an example, I don't think he's in a mind, but when Pat is on a book that is not a Spaces in Between or a Zenoscope, and he's on somebody else like a Merc Mag or a Big Dog Ink book, that brings some of his fans in that might not come into your
You
world.
hope. Yeah,
You
hope.
You hope.
Yes.
I'm being optimistic, everybody.
Yeah.
But it definitely at least draws attention and
Yes.
traffic to it. And
Yes.
so I think when you have some diversity and you have certain writers and artists, obviously they sometimes bring their following into it. And even if you have a 10% conversion on their following, if you're lucky, it's still a bunch of new people or people who maybe skipped a few months coming back in. And so what is that like? Because I think that it's very important at this point to understand the value of diverse writing styles, different writing styles, but also what that writer and what that writer's audience is that might not be your core audience.
Yeah, I mean, it's no different with writers than it is with artists, right? You want to get an artist that has a fan base so that when he does a cover, those fans are like, ooh, tell me what that is. So it's the same thing with writers. Hey, I follow Pat and he writes, all of this stuff. He writes tons of Zenoscope stuff. So there's an easy crossover with Zenoscope to us. I mean, it's super simple. Pat writes a lot of stuff that isn't similar to what we do as well through his own projects. But when you look at his sort of Zenoscope work, it's like, yeah, this is easy. Stephanie's just somebody that I know, and I know that she doesn't have like a huge fan base, but I know that she's a good writer, and I know that she's going to treat the characters properly and do what needs to be done with them to make them the best that they can be. And in that case, I don't mind giving her potentially like a little bump of saying like, hey, why don't you come over for us and do, something cool. And maybe it's levels you up a little bit. But she does have her fans, she's local here in Michigan. So she does have her fans. Her fans do cross over with me a little bit because we have that Michigan connection. But yeah, I mean, that's the hope for always whenever you bring somebody in, is that they're going to bring their fans with you in whatever capacity.
You touched on what I was going to ask is also about cultivating new talent and cultivating new voices, because I think that's a real issue sometimes in the comic realm and in entertainment collectively, is that if you don't cultivate new talent and you don't give talent or new people an opportunity, whether that's a pinup or a cover or take a risk, I mean, I don't know if we can have real growth in any industry if you don't give somebody an opportunity to do something. That doesn't mean that you give them, the whole thing is rested on their shoulders, but I think opportunities need to be granted.
And your brand can get really stagnant if it's just the same thing over and over and over again. If it's the same 5 artists again and again and again, there is brand loyalty, there is artistic loyalty where people are like, oh, I like that guy, I want to, and that's what you want, right? But uh I bounce my artists around and cycle them in such a way that they get sort of spotlight moments, and then they'll kind of, okay, you've done like 5, we're going to put you back for a little while, somebody else will come in, you'll do like 5, you come back in, and then we start to put them in a cycle. So as after they do a period of covers, and the fans are like, oh, hey, is Narsleo coming back to do a thing? It's like, yes, he is, but we're in sort of a cycle for somebody else right now. So I feel like that helps your brain. It is a double-edged coin here, right? So the one side is you get fresh interpretations of what's going on. But the other side to that coin, is that when you're bringing in new people and your fans don't know who those people are, it takes a minute for them to be like, do I like it? I think I like it. Maybe I like it. Okay, I like it. And so that's kind of how you have to deal with it. But you have to cultivate that, because it can't just be the same thing all the time. I just keep seeing the same books with the same artists doing the same types of covers all the time, and I'm like, come on, we gotta spruce this up a little bit. And here's the thing: if you're just using the same people all the time, that could block them out from going somewhere else and doing another book, which expands their audience. And that's the whole point, right? Is you got to expand their audience. So it's great, the idea of like, hey, let's sign this guy to an exclusive contract and he'll just work for Big Dog Inc. But I would kind of rather that guy go and do some other books and get exposed to those audiences, because then when he gets those guys following him, and then that guy's back on Big Dog Inc. Oh, hey, I'm back on Big Dog Inc. now. Those guys are like, oh, what is that? I only know you from this other book. So the trading system of artists is super hyper important, as is just general art direction. And you've got to be able to find ways to push either new or existing artists into places that maybe they're not as comfortable being, just from an artistic standpoint, but you got to push them out of just the standard, like, hey, here I am, I'm standing here. Like, we've seen that, we've done that. Let's see if we can find a different angle, a different perspective. Can be the same pose, but let's push the envelope a little bit. And we did some of that in this campaign.
No. I agree, and I go to wrestling on this. I mean, with wrestling, it's very much front and center on TV. I mean, I know your favorite wrestler is Roman Reigns.
Oh, he's the best. Yeah.
Yeah, he's killing it, guys. He's killing it. It's over and over and over the same thing, and it's getting so stale. Versus a guy like Seth Rollins, he didn't have the belt for almost 4 years,
Right.
and now he has the belt, and it means something. And Monday Night Raw with him is actually exciting.
Mhm.
When he goes to NXT and he defends the belt in NXT, it means something. And I think that's a really good analogy on what that looks like, where I think Roman's had the belt way too long, and I think that he needed like a year and a half off.
Yep.
And then if you got the belt again, it would have been great, because it would have been like, oh, this is fresh. But I digress, and I couldn't agree more about that. And believe me, there's certain campaigns I'm just like, you're saying 5 artists are there, as you were saying, and I'm like, we've been here.
It just looks the same, and you gotta artistically. I mean, you got to do it in the writing too, obviously, but artistically, you got to really try and spruce things up as best you can. And it's, even when you try, you're not always successful. I'm not saying that we're perfect at what we do, not by a long shot, but as an art director, I'm always kind of thinking like, is that like what we want? Like, is there a better way to do it? Can we tinker, tweak, move the camera somehow to get maybe a better shot, just a little more drama? That's what we try and do.
I mean, let me ask you this, because I've evolved as a person where I fail in interviews all the time, and people might say, yeah, the interview was okay. But I used to be terrified of failing. And if I have a bad interview, great. I have a bad interview, it's going to happen. one way or the other. And I think this is a problem in comics, is that I don't know if people are terrified of saying, man, I am terrified of failing, or I just spent $700 of money that was really hard to get, that was crowdfunded, and they're terrified to experiment because they might fail.
Sure.
Because all of a sudden, if you're spending $700 or $500 or $300 on a cover and it's tight in your budget, or it's money you don't technically have and you're hoping to recoup it, I don't know if that's part of it, where they're trying the same things over and over because they somewhat work,
Sure.
and it's a
That's
money problem, or I don't know.
I don't think it's a money problem. I think it's just, like you said, it's just sort of like, this has been working, so let's keep letting it work. But to me, that's diminishing returns. Over time, people will eventually realize, okay, I've seen this. Now, if they're invested in here's the other side of this coin, right? If they're invested in your characters and they're invested in your story, then the cover can be kind of whatever it is, because they just want to get in and they want to read your story and they want to see what the next chapter is. You know, what's the big cliffhanger? Like, what's going on? What's the twist? So at that point, then the cover becomes less important. Then it's just the nostalgia. Then it's member berries. It's like, oh, I like that artist, so I'm going to get that cover because I like that artist, whether they like the cover specifically or not. It's like, I like that guy, so I'm going to buy that guy's cover. And then I want to read this book and see what's going on. So the more invested you can make your fans in your characters and story, the less the covers have to really punch. You know, the punch is for all the art collectors, the guys that want it all, the guys that want like specific artists and so on. That's one crowd. And then you have the folks that really actually care about what you're making and your characters. And to me, and the way that we do it, we feed those guys first. We always feed the story and the character people first, and then we add on our stuff for the collectors.
That's interesting, because I mean, look, I'm a collector, and I look and I say, what's the coolest cover, and what's the
Of course, but you can find the coolest cover, and that doesn't mean that we have some highbrow super artist, right? We have art. If your art is good enough, you don't need to have super artists. It can just be like, holy shit, I don't know who these people are, but they're great. And then again, that's what we're talking about. We're cultivating new talent, right? It's like, Jesus Christ. Like Narcio Sousa came on last year. He did one cover for us for Princess versus Zombies. It sold wildly well. And immediately I came back to him like in January. I was like, let's do another one. And he did another cover. It was done in like 3 days, like done. And I was like, holy shit. Like, do you want to like do another one? He's like, yeah, 3 days. Done. I was like, God damn it. Like, what is going on? So I just kept giving this guy art. He only had one published cover at that point. And I was like, screw it. I'm all in here. Just keep going, man. So same with Eisenetto Adamar. Like, he was the same way. Not as fast, not as many. But he was like, yeah, I'll do another one. I'll do another one. I'll do another one. I was like, Jesus, I love what this guy's doing. So I just kind of put all of my chips in those baskets. While we still use the guys that we normally do. CB Zane is over here. Mike Chrome is over here. You know, Fabio Samau's on here. MR Gunn's on here. But you have to cultivate artists. You have to cultivate style. You have to cultivate interest. And interest is both artistic, like the cover side, and interest is character and story. And for us, character and story always comes first.
No. I get it. I get it. I mean, I just look for things that are also saying, what's a cool idea versus the name, where, you know, there's certain things. And I think it was They like the blacklight thing I thought was cool. And I thought the rock and roll cover was really cool as well. And I was like, both of these covers are really cool concepts. I don't know either one of these artists, and I don't care because
you don't know Joel Gomez, really?
I know Joe Gomez. He does a lot of stuff for Coffin.
Right, that's him. Yep. Mm-hmm.
But I don't know a lot of his work. I just know that he does work for Coffin.
Sure. Yep.
But I like, if you said, what does Joe Gomez do? I couldn't tell you.
Okay, that's fair.
For shit, I couldn't tell you for shit. If you had a gun to my head, I would say it was nice knowing you, Tom. It's nice knowing you, Tom. But yeah. So, but like, I was like, man, that cover just looks awesome. And that was one of the things that made me buy that cover.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's very interesting. And you mentioned something also that I think is interesting about diminishing returns and having to shift things up. And I've actually never mentioned this, but I just went through a pretty big business expansion. And before I was almost 80% in my eBay store as Zenoscope merch. And that's been reduced down to about 25%.
Mhm.
Because I brought in things like Mount Olympus, things like Merc Mag. I'm bringing in stuff from you and some other places, comics, Elite, Power Hour, and my returns are actually significantly higher now. And it's very important, I think, for diversification and having different options and different artists. And when I'm looking at all
Yeah.
these SKUs, I look for different artists, and half of these artists, I'm like, this cover just looks awesome and it resonates with me. And therefore, there are people who it will resonate with as well.
Yeah,
And so,
there's a couple of ways to kind of look at this, right? There's the idea that you do one thing and you do one thing really well. Horror, comedy, sci-fi, whatever it is that you do the one thing and you do it well because you can really hyper niche yourself into that genre and that audience, and that audience will respond to you a lot. They'll be like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, he's doing this for me. Then there's the idea of something for everybody, which is kind of where we are. And now that's not on purpose necessarily. But I like the Wizard of Oz and I like Westerns. I like superheroes. I like horror. I like kaiju. I like Jungle Girls. I like historical fiction. And so for us at Big Dog Inc., it's all just based on kind of what I want to write. And I have never hyper fixated on any sort of one genre. I've always kind of let my mind just go free to like, you know what, I'm going to write Westerns today. And that's what we're going to do. So there is value in sort of hyper focusing, do one thing and do one thing well. It's what is it? It's the jack of all trades, but a master of none, right? So, I mean, we can say that like, I'm not necessarily a master of everything that I've done, but I have something that if someone comes to my table or goes to my website, chances are as they're scanning through all of the stuff, there's probably going to be something on the table that they're like, oh, well, tell me what that is. Whereas if everything I had was horror, I wouldn't have families coming up to see Critter and Oz, and I wouldn't necessarily have, you know what I mean, like that kind of stuff.
No. I get that. I guess the reason why I bring up my eBay business is that I used to be very niche down in bad girl art is where I really specialize in. And then I specialize in sort of anime comic style as well. You don't see me picking up key issues for a reason where
Right.
I know a lot less about that. I would much rather deal with bad girl art, but I had to almost diversify out of a particular sector. And I had to become, I guess, a more jack of all trades within a sector.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Because I was forced to, and I was forced to evolve because I couldn't compete with my competitors, and now I'm not where they're at. And so it's very interesting because I had to diversify to grow. And
The
I think
more
it's
fluid you can be in business, the better off you'll be. Because the easier you can be like, you know what, I'm going to make a left turn, and I'm going to let those guys keep going that way. I'm going to go this way. And good things can happen. I mean, everything's a risk. Business is a risk, art is a risk, but you have to kind of just run with what feels right to you, and and then that's your focus. Like, this feels right now, we're going that way. Doesn't feel right anymore, we're going to go that way. And the easier you can pivot, the more fluid you are. Particularly in an art scene that's just like constantly changing, the better off you'll be.
it's one of the things that I mean, I've become a lot more fluid. And what I'm actually really trying to do and what I'm trying to actually foster for business wise is I want to pick up retail packages, but only of 10 books because I want to test the market. And it's one of my biggest problems when I speak to people. I'm like, I like what you're doing. I like your covers, but you're not really giving me an ability to test the market. Where a lot of people want like me to buy 50 books, and that's a big ask.
Mhm.
Not because it's not even a money problem. 400 bucks is not the issue. It's I don't want to be stuck with 50 bucks.
Sure.
That if they don't move, then I'm stuck with 50 bucks that take up a short box, take up a third of a short box.
Well,
And
again, it's one of those things where you have to be aware as a business owner. If you're paying $5 a book and retail is $25 a book or whatever it is, and you can't sell them at 25, but your cost is 5, sell them for 10 and just get rid of them. you're out the books. You are up, not where you wanted to be financially, but you are up, and then you can just kind of be like, whoosh, okay, wipe that slate and go.
Yeah, I agree.
But a lot of people get really stuck on that whole thing. Like, well, no, this is a $25 book. Well, it's a $25 book if people are paying $25 for it. If it's otherwise, it's not. And like I said, sometimes publishers miss. We might do a cover and be like, oh my God, that's going to be so good. And then it just misses. And then there's other ones where I have literally looked at a cover and gone, oh, fuck. I think we're screwed on that one. And it's sold like wildfire. So
I could tell a story that the hottest card this year, statistically, they leaf metal. It's the Shohei Ohtani baseball card of him as a samurai, and leaf metal's biggest print was 384. They printed 2,700 of these cards, and people just kept ordering them. And as more and more were ordered, the price went up. And it's because he's the best player in baseball. And for whatever reason, this card is not the flashiest, but it is the most popular card to date. With that coming in, it probably will be for at least another 2 or 3 years.
Well, that's concept, right? That's what we're talking about with art. Is every baseball card is a dude doing this. So if you're going to take Shohei Ohtani and make him a samurai, that's concept. That's a different thing. And so people are going to look at that and go, fuck, I mean, that's completely different from all the other baseball cards that I have. So yeah, no, I mean, concept is a big piece of art. It's not just, hey, we need a character saying hi, it's like, what's the situation? Like, what's the background? Like, what's the pose? What's the perspective? Is there a prop that we're going to use? Whatever it is, like we did wrestling covers. We did 5 wrestling covers, over the course of a couple of years, that were pretty popular. So, art has to be concept, particularly when you were talking about variant covers and stuff. You've got to be able to push the envelope a little bit, whenever you can. Again, no one's perfect. Everybody misses. But the more effort you put into art direction, the better off you'll be on the backside.
Yeah, and I think also you got to hit nerves, and I think you got to hit things that are familiar.
Yeah. Fucking homages, Jesus Christ. Yeah.
I mean, I'll give you an example. Like, some of my favorite covers are the "Do You Poos" of Michael Jordan dunking. Yeah. I just think they're funny. I think it's hilarious. Michael Jordan has, like, when he's dunking, is
Marat Michaels is the king of the homage. I mean, that's his brand is the homage. Like, that's it. That's his brand. And he has mastered it in a lot of different ways. And so you can't really knock what he's doing. I mean, you either like it or you don't. It doesn't appeal to me in the slightest, but I can look at what he's doing and being like, yeah, I get it. I understand. I know what's going on here.
I'm a basketball fan. That's the problem. Mm-hmm. And Michael Jordan is the greatest. So that's for me, it's not even so much.
Christian Laettner is the greatest. Come on, stop with your Michael Jordan. Jeez.
My point is that I enjoy those covers, because when I see those covers, it just makes me smile. And sure. That's what I think is.
That's the goal, man. That's every homage's cover is like, how do we tap into what people know and then wrap our brand into it? I mean, it's just like Gene Simmons. I remember when Gene Simmons was talking about doing Hello Kitty Kiss figures. I'm like, Jesus Christ, what is this? But he's like, dude, this is 2 brands. We're going to jam them together and it's going to be awesome. And here it is. So, I understand the homages. For me, again, I want a deep cut. I want an homage that I haven't seen before. I want something that, isn't just your character doing the Spider-Man 300, right? Like, find something that's relative to your character within movies or TV. There's endless opportunities for cool homages and tribute covers and stuff like that. So just go deep, like make something that no one's done or that's done only a couple of times, There are some places that you kind of want to be in the collection world because that puts your name on a weird map, like Walking Dead covers. There's literally a website dedicated to Walking Dead #1 homages. The Spider-Man #1, People buy those just because it's that. So you kind of want to do it in the right sort of specifics, just so your name is in the world that those guys collect. And then maybe, hopefully, you're like, oh yeah, I got that Critter McFarlane book. What the hell is this book? What else does Big Dog Inc. do? And you hope that you can, again, drag people out of that.
No. It makes sense. It makes sense. I mean, I love those wrestling covers that you've done. The Money in the Bank, Stacy Keibler, or Penny for Your Soul. I think it's great. I think it's funny. I love wrestling, and I think it's great. It obviously struck a nerve with me. And so I think that's, I don't know if that's an homage as much as it's sort of situational.
It's conceptual. Yeah, that's it. It's conceptual. I mean, to some degree, it was sort of an homage because in her case, we did her specific pose in the ropes, going through the middle ropes. The other ones, though, were just conceptual. It's just like coming down the ring ropes and doing the tag team match and whatever. So they were just kind of, conceptual tributes.
I like to call it.
That's it. Yeah.
But I think it's so interesting. And obviously, I mean, we got the books, and obviously Daisy and Dawn we're dealing with, and you have vampires. Obviously, we're dealing with Jasmine fighting, zombies out in the Midwest, which should be fun. And that genie's going to be let out of the bottle. I've been waiting to use that joke for a while. I've been waiting like a good week.
Mars Foong did a cover for that. She's one of our new artists, and she did such a great cover. It's such a cool, again, concept, right? It's like, okay, you have Jasmine. What do you do with Jasmine? Like, you don't want to necessarily just want to have all of these covers where the princesses are just like hacking heads off. Again, that just gets tired. So I was like, how do we do this? Like, how do we do the carpet? Like, how do I make a flying carpet, but in the real world? Like, how would you do that? And then I was like, oh my God, Mars, this is how we do this. We're going to put her up in the tree, and she's going to have the carpet tied into the branches like a hammock, so that she's laying on the hammock, and then the zombies are going to be below her, like reaching up, trying to get her. And she's just going to be on the hammock like, yeah, I'm all right. This is fine. And Mars got it immediately. There it is right there. Mars got it immediately. And I was like, fuck, this looks so great. Like, it's so good. Such a great concept. And she absolutely nailed it.
I didn't even realize it was zombies down below. I just thought it was people, and she was just chilling out. Like it didn't even get in my head the zombies. I'm like, I see that she's on her carpet. I didn't even think it was tied to the trees. I was just like, cool, she's on her carpet. It looks like Jasmine, and she's just chilling out. And she doesn't want to deal with people. Like, I didn't even interpret it that way, but it makes sense. I mean, but I just thought it was a fun cover in that realm. But now I realize that I made an error in my judgment. I'm okay taking the L on this one. But we should probably talk about covers, because there's some cool stuff out there that you got in this campaign.
Well, and literally, as we're talking, we have had pledge after pledge after pledge after pledge coming in, and we just crossed $9,000 in 9 hours, and that unlocks stretch goal number 1. So when we're done here, I'm going to go change all of our images, and stretch goal number 1 is now officially unlocked. Woohoo! And it's the Jasmine. So we have this artist. His name's Bun Leong, and he does amazing chibi stickers, or chibi art, which we have turned into stickers, but we've now really been doing magnets. People really seem to like the magnets, so we've turned them all into magnets. So it is the Jasmine Bun Leong chibi magnet is now officially unlocked. So if you're spending $25 or more on the campaign for any physical items, you're going to get one of those free now.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. I'm at 85 so far, and I'll probably be at like another 80 at some point after I back day one stuff. So talking about day one, this one right here, it's retro stuff from the archives.
Yep.
And so
this is the first cover for Penny for Your Soul, number 1, 13 years ago, by JB Netto and Oren Kramick. That's the original art team for the book. And so when we have these we started doing this a few years ago when we had our 10-year anniversaries. We wanted to, sort of celebrate the roots of where we came from. And since back in the day, we weren't doing foil covers and metals and all that kind of stuff. We do what's called retro foils now. So we'll find a cover that we like. We'll turn it into a holofoil cover and do a very, very limited print run. So these are available today only, not the first 24 hours, day one. So at midnight tonight Eastern time, which is now 3 hours away, these will be removed from the campaign. They'll be gone. You will not be able to get them. So if you want one, you got to get them tonight.
And then this is the Critter one.
Yep. That's the Todd Knock. Again, 13 years ago.
So what is that like to have him on it? Because that's like
Todd was great. I mean, Todd was really helpful when I was starting to figure out what the hell I was doing with comics and how this whole industry worked. Todd was really amazing. And I met him officially at Wizard World Los Angeles. And I went in there and I had talked to him on Facebook a little bit. So I went in there and I was like, hey, I'm the guy that's been bugging you. He's like, oh, Tom, what's going on? I'm like, yeah, cool. And so I just kind of parked at his table and just talked to him like for hours and hours. And whenever people would come to his table, I'd just kind of like walk away and like, okay, here, do your thing. And then I'd come back in like, okay, Todd, now what? And eventually Todd was like, look, just come back here, just sit back here. And then they can just come and we can talk back here. And I was like, holy God, this is awesome. So I sat with him and talked with him about, everything, because he has done everything. I mean, he's worked for Marvel. He's done creator-owned stuff. He's worked for other, he used to work for Extreme Studios, all kinds of crap. So I just wanted to pick his brain about how all this stuff worked. And he was great. And then ultimately he let me use one of his creator-owned characters in Critter. Critter number 2 has a crossover appearance by Lilyhammer from his book called Wild Guard. So, I mean, just unbelievably kind. And then of course he did the cover for me, and then he did the cover for issue 2 as well.
So let's actually talk about this, because I've had moments when I first started out in interviewing where people tolerated me as a shitty interviewer and every right to destroy me. Sure. A guy named Eddie Kingston, who wrestles in AEW right now. Rough interview on my part, really helpful. He freaking carried the interview, and other people have been extremely helpful in a lot of ways when I was first starting out as an interviewer. And I think it's tricky now sometimes, where I think there's plenty of kind of people. I think you're one of the nicest people in comics, and I think you're extremely helpful in a lot of ways. And there's been some creator hangouts where you gave really good advice to a bunch of people. But I also think that there's a lot of people who, I don't want to say they're mean, but they're not helpful, or they don't feel like sharing knowledge.
Sure. And yeah.
I think it's a weird time, because I don't know, maybe there's an issue of competition. Maybe people feel that they're threatened that if I share knowledge, that somebody's going to take my spot, or they're going to take food away from my campaign.
100% that's the case. Yes.
So I mean, I just think it's very problematic, but I understand what's going on. I just don't know how we get past it, if at all. And
you can't. It's not a thing. Somebody is either willing to talk and willing to, sort of help the next generation, or however you want to describe that, or they're not, and that's it. And I always have. It's been really strange for me, because when we started, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I mean, I had no clue what the hell I was doing with anything. But being on the other side of the table suddenly gave me this weird credibility in the eyes of a convention attendee base. Like, oh my God, how did he get over there? And it wasn't that like, oh, Tom makes shitty stuff, how did he get there? It was just like, oh my God, like this guy did it. Like he made it, and he's over there, and he's made, like, I'm like, yeah, but I don't know what the hell I'm doing, man. Like all my books are different sizes, and like, it's a mess. I don't even have an editor. But I always was like, hey, let me tell you my experience, which is all I have. I can tell you my experience. And then, I would get people that want me to do portfolio reviews and stuff. And I'm like, happy to do it. Always happy to do it. So I've always tried to give back in whatever tiny capacity I could. And now when I do panels, not just at the booth, but when I do panels at cons, I have 13 years under the belt now. And while that's still minuscule for a lot of professional guys, 13 years, when you consider we started in 2010, Kickstarter wasn't a thing. Facebook was barely a thing. Social media was barely a thing. We started in the dark ages of comics. And then we've kind of gone through all of this to now to where we're doing live shows on Facebook. I was published myself. I was published by Aspen. We've published through Kickstarters. I've worked for Dynamite Comics now. I have other publishers now that are talking to me. I don't know why. I suck, but they want me. So it's like, okay, Tom, you seem to do good stuff. So why don't you come write stuff for us? Oh, okay. I'm happy to do that. So you are either at that point willing to say to the next generation, like, hey, here's how I did it. This is my experience. This is my thought process. Take it for whatever it's worth, and then go talk to somebody else too, because I'm not the be all end all. But here's how I did it. Here's my journey and my path. And you guys now have this path to follow, because where I was 10 years ago is not where any of this exists, in 2023. So, we did a couple of panels at Tremendicon, and they were really good. We actually had people in there. People were genuinely interested to, like, hey, I'm going to go to a panel and listen to these guys talk about shit. Okay, awesome. Let's talk about shit. But what I always try and do at the panels is like, okay, tell me what you want to know. Because oftentimes the panel descriptions are so vague. They're like, well, breaking into comics, like, excuse me, like, that's not a thing anymore. That's not a real thing. Breaking into comics, you just make your own spot. I mean, you can break into like Marvel or DC or whatever. That's still kind of, to me, breaking into comics. But nowadays, you just make a spot, and just kind of kick the door open a little and sneak in and take a booth.
See that's interesting. So I used to do 2 panels at cons: how to get into podcasting or how to create a podcast, and I used to do how to do comic book investing. And if I ever redo it, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the agenda, because I usually like to give a syllabus and I like to color code it. Say, hey, here's what we're going to do. And then I almost feel like just maybe I'm even just going to start saying, guys, what do you want to know? Even though I'm supposed to speak for 45 minutes and save 10 minutes for questions, that seems kind of stupid on the cons part, where I have 70 of you in here. You're all in here for a reason, because you all have a question, or you just need a place to sit for an hour, which is fine too. But
yeah, I mean, people do just sit and listen. They're happy to do it. Whatever you want to say, they will listen to you. But again, in my brain, I'm like, I may not be touching on what you get. Everybody in comics is at a different level, and so I may not be touching on anything that you guys really have a question about. So I'm going to give you a spiel, and I'm going to talk about some things that I think you should know. But then it comes down to like, okay, do you guys know what 300 DPI means? Do you guys know what a barcode is? Like, these are real things that a lot of people don't necessarily, understand about art and comics and stuff. So, but then it's like, yeah, you gotta ask me what you need, and then I'll tell you the answer.
I mean, I'll be very honest. I like the lecture on like the Godfather of anime, and that is a straight 45-minute lecture. And I don't mind taking questions, but we're just talking about a particular person. There's information, but it's entertainment. But when I'm doing something that is that way, I absolutely agree. Where it's like, guys, what do you want to know, and what do you need to know? And there's things that I don't know, and I'm sure there's things you don't know. And the answer to that is saying, look, I don't know what it is, but shoot me an email, and hopefully I could find you an answer. And
that's one of the great things about doing panels with multiple people, is if you don't have an answer, somebody else probably does. So, you kind of want to have 2 or 3 people at least up on there that have some knowledge of whatever, just lost the word, whatever the hell we're talking about. Subject, whatever subject we're talking about. If you got multiple people, you're going to get great answers, and you're going to get multiple viewpoints on the same thing as well, which is often really cool. Because again, what everybody says is their journey, and it doesn't necessarily translate to anyone else's journey. But you kind of take that information and take the pieces out of it that you're like, yeah, I'm kind of there. So maybe I'll listen to this part, but I've passed this, so I don't really need this part. Whatever.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. And I just think that certain people want to share information and certain people don't.
Yes.
And I also think that information should be vetted because there are people who are really good and there are people who don't provide good information.
Yes.
And, luckily I provided bad information at certain points, not purposely, but just because on certain topics I was ill-informed on something, or conversely, my opinion has changed on certain things. And I used to be very, just not comically, but I used to be very anti-crypto, and I'm now very, pro crypto. But I've evolved over years.
Sure.
So you could find me talking about anti-crypto issues, and then 6 years later, you find me that I am talking about it. So in a positive way. But again, I digress. But I do want to talk about your covers because that's the fun stuff. So this is the traditional, I guess the cover A, for lack of a better word. It's
cover A, the logo cover. Yep. Cool group shot there by Jason Hay here, and Elenia DiNapoli on the colors. Came out great.
And then we got this one, which is Yeehaw Vampires.
Yep, that is Fabio Simao. Love this piece so much. Again, it's dramatic, right? Like the angle is weird. It's like kind of cocked. Then we had, so when Elenia colored it, it came back. It was really good. But I was like, we gotta punch this up. We got to go one step further. I need some J.J. Abrams in this cover. Bring me the lens flare off those lights. And she was like, I got you. And it came back, and I was like almost blinded by it. I was like, oh my God, that's so great. I love it. So yeah.
And then you got this, which is a different style. I like it. It's got a little bit of a Will Jack flair to it.
Yep. This is M.R. Gunn. He does digital painting. And this was great too. I loved working on this. I loved the getting the whole like coming through the cloud with the spiral effect. And again, just putting a little more, not just that we're flying, but like where we came from and what happened behind her, like poof through the cloud. I like that.
It's got a little Will Jack Power Girl in it. I like it.
Sure.
Then I showed this one before, and obviously I'm taking the L on this one.
Mars Foon. Yep. She's awesome.
And then we got this one right here, which is some fan service.
So yeah, so now we have the BD13, the whole point behind it is sort of like PG-13, right? It was supposed to be this rating of the books. So BD13, we get a little more racy with some of the books, a little more innuendo, because we don't really do a lot of this stuff, but fans like it. And so we literally just called it like, look, here's this next section. These are the fan service covers. These are for you. This is what you've been asking for. We're going to give it to you.
So let's actually talk about this a little bit. And the idea is that you don't do the boob books for
not much. We do them, but it's not our standard thing.
Yeah, exactly. So you do things, in my opinion, and tell me to shut the fuck up at any point. And tell me
shut the fuck up.
Exactly. You do things that I find to be classic, where they are, I think, sexy. I think they are a little bit suggestive, but I think it's very classic. I think it's very respectable, very not modest, but pushing the line, but subtle might be a good word.
It's Playboy. It's not Penthouse. It's Playboy.
Thank you. That's exactly what I was looking for. And then when you're starting to dive into this fan service stuff, we're starting to get a little bit more, I guess, risque Playboy.
Sure.
And
yep.
We're starting to dive further away and a little bit more risque, but we're not in Hustler yet.
Correct.
I mean, we're a far step away from Hustler. So what is that like to get to venture in there and get to play in that? Because you have a book like this in there, which is fun, where we know what's going on, and you get this right here, with the big butts. But again, it's not over the top.
It's all in fun, right? For me, I don't ever want to do books where it's just like boobs for boobs, like have some fun with it, like figure out a way that it's a little more fun. We've done some boob stuff in the back or in the past rather with, where it's like just a patch, right? You got the character, she's doing whatever she's doing, and then the patch is just she's topless, and those are fine, and that's sort of the standard for the industry. But sometimes, like the poses that they're in, and then they're suddenly topless, it's like that doesn't really make a lot of sense. That's kind of weird.
I'll throw this out there, and I hate to, put Keith Garvey in a bad position, but there's a Zenescope book where the girl is behind the Eiffel Tower, and then Zenescope does the exact same thing with her topless behind the Eiffel Tower, and the book makes no sense whatsoever. The topless for that book makes no sense.
Probably that's not even a Keith Garvey thing. That's just Zenescope saying, do this. And Keith's like, okay.
And I'm not saying it's anybody's fault. It's not like a cardinal sin, but it makes no sense except the fact that she's topless. And that's
it's I mean, you have to have you have a couple of options when you're making covers. You can tell a story with it, which is basically been thrown out the door for 90% of covers that are produced now. There's no story. I mean, even ours, I mean, that our A cover, there's no story there, but it's just sort of a general gathering of the characters. So, what's inside. You've got the cars in the background, and then there's the pure, oh, that's a hot cover. That's your next step. And the hot cover can be just a hot cover, and it can be a topless cover. There's even full nude covers that are happening now. So it's just like, you just got to decide what you want and I've had this discussion with people before. You've got to decide what you want your brand to be, because if people are like, oh, I'm going to like Google whatever this book is that I've heard of, and everything that comes up on Google is just boob books, like just naked boobs, you could turn your audience off in a hurry. Now, if that's your brand, on the other side of things, like for example, Dan Mendoza, like that's the brand, right? Then 100% you go full bore into all of that. And you just tear the system down. And I'm okay with however people want to do it. It's your gig. But I think like we talked about this before, the diminishing returns, right? If people aren't invested in your characters, then it doesn't matter that their boobs are out, because I don't care about your character. There's no excitement anymore. The titillation is gone. I remember when we announced that we were going to do our first topless book in, God, I don't even know how long, years. People were like, what? How are you doing this? Like what? Like there was an excitement level to it. There was like a holy shit. Like Tom's doing something weird right now. And I was, that's exactly the response I wanted. I wanted it to be a holy shit. I got to see what's going on here, because if I had just boobs on everything, it would be like, oh yeah, Tom's got boob covers. Okay, that's fine. But this was a little more, for whatever reason, it was a little more exciting and drove interest.
I'll throw something out in wrestling. Chris Jericho and Big Show, they were a tag team and they just kept dominating. And Big Show was like, hey, Chris, when are we going to get merch? And Chris Jericho was like, not yet. And so months on end, they didn't have merchandise. And what started happening is that fans wanted merchandise. Mm-hmm. And so it was the idea that for like 4 or 5 months, then they finally got merchandise, and their merchandise was the hottest item in WWE. And then they were in main events and they were getting real money. And Big Show was like, I guess you're right, Chris, to Chris Jericho, because they made more money by waiting and by denying, because then it became a big deal when their T-shirt dropped of Jericho.
That's right. Yeah, if you are constantly giving, it's the what's the old adage? No one's going to buy the cow if you give them the milk for free, right? So if you keep giving them the milk, there's no big deal. I've seen that milk. What other milk can I see right now? So it's it's just, again, there's no right or wrong. There's no yes or no. It's just choose what your brand is going to be. And if you choose the boob side of it, do yourself a favor. Go see how Dan Mendoza does it, because he has mastered it. Coffin Comics to a degree, but not everything he does has boobs either. I mean, it's sort of hit and miss with boobs over there. But watch what those guys are doing. And those guys do play on the edge of art and concept and comics. So you kind of need to know that you're over there if that's what you're doing. But if you'd like to just sort of have something that, isn't going to inundate your Google search with boobs, go the other way. You can still do sexy covers. You just don't have to, take the tops off, and then you can kind of play in different waters.
Yeah, no. It makes sense. Makes sense. I mean, I don't. I like playing with fully clothed covers on eBay. No. I like sexy.
I think a boob cover is fine. I think if it's interesting, but again, if it's just like, hey, here's the cover, like, oh, okay, that's cool. Oh, and my top's off. It's not really working. Like, you'll see the one that we did, right? The boob cover that we did, there it is. So it kind of fits even the original pose, because obviously this is just a clothing patch, but the pose on the nude cover fits what we're doing here with the entire character. So you're getting like I'm doing the selfie thing. It's like OnlyFans, right? It's like a character on OnlyFans. Hey, I'm doing the selfie thing. I'm in a different outfit. We're gonna take the top off. So it fits conceptually with what we're doing, and that's what I liked about it. And that's why even it was funny, because when I talked to Brian about it, he was like, "Well, do you want like her boobs out?" Like, and I was like, "Yeah, let's do it. Like, we haven't done it, so let's just do it." And he was kind of shocked. And again, that's good, because I've shocked my artist. He didn't get the answer he expected, so that's good. So if he was shocked and excited, then the fans should be, and so far that's been the case.
No. I get it. There's a really good cover from Avert Your Eyes by Black Mask, where it's the idea that I think she's holding up like a camera, and then there's also like an iPhone that's covering basically her private parts, taking the photo, and the camera's covering her breasts. Oh, it's brilliant, because it makes sense that she's posing in a very playful way, but she's not revealing anything nude. Oh,
Yeah.
it's a brilliant cover.
Cool.
It's so conceptual, and it's so masterful. And I forget the artist. It might have been Lendai who did the art. And then now that I think about it, and I think Lendai, I think it's a she. I could be mistaken, but
yeah, Lene Dai. Yeah, I know who that is.
And so I think she might have done it, but I could be mistaken. But they understood concept
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
how to do something that made sense. And there's a difference. There is a difference between those two things versus throwing a character somewhere into it. But again, if it makes money, I'm not one to judge.
That's what I always say, right? Is like, if you're making your money, then make your money, man. I'm not going to tell you otherwise.
I measure things by profit. I don't measure things by if you have 50 books on your table, but you didn't make a dime. It's great that you had 50 books, and I respect the hustle to produce 50 books, but you also have to understand the P word, and it's profit and profitability and making sure your business is healthy. And I think that that's a problem in this industry massively too, is that
there's big publishers all over the place that are collapsing. I mean, again, like I just said, right? Like, here's the little guy, here's Tom down here, and then here's the big guys going up. It's like, the industry's different, guys. It's changed, and you got to be able to roll with it. And I shouldn't say no one, but a lot of these bigger companies just don't know how to roll with it. And so, that's why a lot of creators are now coming to Kickstarter. Like, legitimate, real creators are coming to Kickstarter, and this is where they do their thing. Even if they're Marvel or DC guys, they're still like, yeah, but I'm going to go create our own thing, and I'm going to put it on Kickstarter. So awesome.
Agreed. And then there's this right here, which is cool, which is the Marissa Pope stuff.
Yep. So that's the mystery box. That will be the last of our TikTok series. She did 4 of them. So that'll be the last of our TikTok series. You'll get 10 BDI books in there. 8 of them will be random BDI variants from 8 different titles. So it's a good starter set as well. So if you don't know a lot about Big Dog Inc., we've got like a sort of a starter set as well as a mystery box. Then you'll have 1 super variant. So it'll be like a holofoil or a metal or something very, very limited edition. And then you get the exclusive TikTok version of Marissa Pope's Catnip there. And then we have been putting in these magnets as exclusive bonus items. But this time we're actually putting in one of our acrylic standees. They're about 5 inches tall, about like that. And so that's the brand new Cupid acrylic standee, and that'll be added to the box as well. And there's only 50 of those boxes. When they're gone, they're gone.
I have mine, and I don't really care. And whatever I don't like, eBay it goes.
There you go.
I got no problem admitting it. Again, I'm testing it. I'm testing BDI on eBay in my store because I sell Zenoscope, I sell Mount Olympus, and I sell your stuff, Merc, and Comics Elite. It's all very similar. I'm seeing what works well together because I love symbiotic relationship. Because the people who want to buy something that is BDI, there's a good chance they'll buy a Mount Olympus. There's a good chance they'll buy a Zenoscope. There's a good chance they'll buy some Merc. And I want to sell everything to everybody, and that's good for everybody.
Absolutely.
So that's how I feel. And if you are upset by that, I'm sorry.
Not in the slightest.
I'm glad. And then this was July 11th was Cow Day.
National Cow Appreciation Day. And so we had Brian do a cow costume for Blue Jay. Again, it still all fits perfectly with who she is and what she does. So I love it. I think it's fantastic. This is available as a regular version. And then there's going to be a holofoil too, which is going to just fucking look amazing. Holofoil is going to look ridiculous on this.
I might be buying that for somebody for a very interesting wrestler named Billy Starks. She is arguably going to be the best wrestler in the world, which is insane. She's stupid fucking good. It's incredible how good she is. She went to prom. She's like 18 with like 3 title belts on her. It's the funniest thing I've ever seen. So many people go to their prom with like 3 like title belts on the indie scene. That was brilliant. But yeah, she wrestles for AEW, and then this also is another book out there.
So that's the Marissa Pope book. This is available as a holofoil Virgin edition. You can see all the TikTok logos are gone. So if you just want that and you're not worried about the box set, you can just get that one available as a holofoil too. That's going to look really sweet too with that lens flare in it.
Yeah, and then there's a bunch of other stuff also that's holofoiled out.
Yeah, there's holofoil editions, there's metal editions, not of everything. We don't do that. We don't say like, here's everything, and then here's everything is metal and everything is foil. We kind of pick and choose. But there's 3 holofoils. There are 2 metal covers. And then if you are not familiar with Big Dog Ink., we have options for a lot of our trade paperbacks, Critter, Ursa Minor, Kaiju Epic, Princess vs. Zombies. So if you want to get to read what we do, we have those options as well to just kind of dive into the entire BDI universe.
And then I mean, do you have things of Penny for Your Soul, the remaster? Is that still like available? Like
not yet, because that's at the printer. We will have those probably a couple of months. Those will be out and available for the public.
Because I know that the first one is sold out, but I know the other stuff is available, which is a whole thing. We spoke about that in a previous interview.
Yeah, you can get a Vark trade paperback in this campaign. It's a good starting point. It's sort of a middle point, but it's its own story for the most part. There is obviously some continuity both directions, but if you haven't tried Penny for Your Soul and you don't have a number 1, you can grab the Joan of Arc, and it'll give you a sense of what we're doing with the entire concept and all the characters. And then you can work your way backwards and forwards, as need be. But volume 1 that we just did, the remaster, it's at the printer. So I'm expecting to have them here in a couple of months.
Yeah, and then there's a few other things that are at the printer or getting to the printer. I know Ursa Minor is still in the works.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Penny for Your Soul, you just stated. I know the action figure is up and down because
it's also supposed to be here like in a couple of months. Yeah, that's the last time I talked to them. They were like, yeah, August probably. Now some of that depends on customs, because customs can either go fast or slow. But they were like, yeah, August, it should be, in the States. So I was like, oh shit, that's great.
Hopefully, optimistically, because the rule is that you always under promise and over deliver.
Yeah. Listen, we've waited for this for so long that I tell the fans whatever it is these fuckers tell me. And I'm like, they told me this is my current information. You get it. If that information changes, I will tell you again.
So I'm waiting on these Otani cards because they're all sold, and I sold my stack of 18 out of my 20. And I just let all my people know, say, hey, they're running 2 weeks behind. I'm sorry. There's nothing I can do. And if you're like, no worries, man. We know you're going to deliver. We know that you're not screwing us because you have a good track record on eBay. And I'm like, I'm sorry. I am waiting for my 2 as well. And I am with you. I am not happy. And usually when people say I'm not happy because I bought one for myself also. You're like, I get it. Because I have a stake in everything that I buy sometimes. So there you go. So I get it. But before Christmas, optimistically,
I would think that that's not a problem at all. Yeah, for sure. Based on what they're telling me, that shouldn't be a problem at all. And since I've already shipped out all the stuff that isn't toy related orders, all I have left to ship are the toy related orders. So the shipping should move faster too.
The toy related orders is the action figures and the comics with them,
anybody right? That ordered the action figure plus something else, we're going to ship all that together. But there were people that didn't buy the toy. They just bought books and prints and stuff. So all of that's already out the door. So that's out of my hair, which will let the shipping move a little faster.
I don't know. I'm excited for it. I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet, but I'm excited for it. It might just go
fucking play with it is what you're going to do with it. You're going to have him kick your G.I. Joes in the face is what you're going to do with it. That's what you better be doing.
What I might do is that I might keep it in the box until I move.
That's the most horrible thing I've ever heard in my life.
And then what I want to do is I might open it up and then get a nice, really big glass case.
So look,
and have them fight.
I got Scarlet right here, right? As soon as Critter's here, they are in a battle royal. It is all on immediately.
Well, I can tell you who Critter's fighting first in my house. My next Super Saiyan 3 Goku. It's on.
Goku. Punk.
It's gonna be great. It's gonna be great.
Oh, so here, I'll show you this. For those because we were talking about those standees. This is one of the ones we did before, right? I'm trying to get the light. There we go. So this is what the standees look like. So in that mystery box, that's what they look like. They're about 5 inches tall. They come with a base. And we only do 100 of them. So that's what those are.
It's going to be fun. I can't wait to make a stop motion of Critter fighting Goku. It's going to be great. It's going to be all over TikTok.
It better be.
Maybe I should go buy the Mattel WCW ring and have Critter in like a ring. Taking on Hulk Hogan, it'd be great.
30 points of articulation, man. You can do whatever you want.
Oh, it'll be absolutely fantastic. But yeah, no. I think it's interesting. And then obviously I know there's art prints. Obviously, there's a lot of trade paperbacks in this thing. And there's just a lot of stuff from Big Dog Inc. that if you want something, you can get it. Jungle Girls also, is that just a single issue? Or is that...
Yeah, we've only done the one issue. So we've got that as an add-on. Kaiju Epic is an add-on. The Princesses versus Zombies line is an add-on. Well, I mean, they're pledges. You can just pledge for that stuff too if you want. But yeah, all that stuff so that you can get a taste of everything that we do.
And then obviously, I mean, if there's not something that's on this campaign, I'm sure that somebody could shoot you a message. And if it's obtainable, I'm sure that something could be worked out in some fashion.
Yeah, you can message me. You can go to the website, bigdoginc.com. That'll take you right to the store. And you can just kind of browse around, see what you find, see what you like. But I live on Facebook. So if anybody's got questions, you can always shoot me a message on Facebook. And you know, I can answer questions, direct you to product. In fact, somebody on this campaign, he was like, "Oh, dude, I missed the pillow fight, campaign. How do I get it?" And I'm like, "I got you. We got you hooked up. No problem." So yeah, we can always make it work for you.
Yeah. It's customer service 101.
Yeah.
But I do want to back out of all of this, and I do want to talk about your other favorite topic, and that is movies.
Sure.
And there are three things that I'm very curious about how you feel about. How did you feel about the Mario movie?
It was okay.
Because I didn't see it. I didn't see it yet. I'm waiting till August 30th.
I think you'll like. You're a video game guy, so I think you'll love it.
It's going to be on Peacock.
I enjoyed it. I didn't love it, but I'm not super video game guy. So there was a lot of stuff in there that was like Easter egg driven that didn't connect with me because I was like, I don't get it, guys. But it was good. I enjoyed it. It's on the upper half of my list of movies. So yeah, it was good for sure. I knew it was going to be $1 billion movie. I was on a show last year and I was like, that is $1 billion movie. It's not even a question that's a $1 billion movie. It would have to be so monumentally bad to not make $1 billion. And that's exactly what it did. So yeah, no, it was good. I think you'll enjoy it a lot.
No, I'm excited to see it. Obviously, due to my surgery, I didn't get to see it. It's coming on August 3rd, so that's a Peacock, and I think it'll be great. I think it'll be a good time. I'll crack open a beer. It'll be great. And it's not. I don't think it'll be bad. Do I think it'll be perfect? No, but it'll be worth. I think it'll be worth what, like the hour and 40 minutes.
100%. Yeah, it's a tight movie.
And then, how did you feel about Fast X? Because I enjoyed Fast X, but it was
terrible. Oh, it was terrible. It was awful. Like so awful. Like nothing. Like a lot of times I'll say bad movies, even bad movies have moments that are good. I'm really struggling to find the good. Like the John Cena stuff was okay when he was with Dom's kid. Some of that stuff was okay. That's probably the stuff that I was okay with the most. But it was awful. It was just awful. I'm done with. I mean, I haven't seen one since 7, so I skipped the last 2, so I'm out of continuity or whatever. But even regardless, like the story was fine. I had no problem with, but just it was terrible. It's just wrap that fucking franchise up.
I enjoyed it, but it was bad. Does that make any sense?
You can enjoy a bad movie. That's totally fine. I enjoy, dude. There are plenty of shitty movies that I like. Trust me. So yeah, no, it's if you like a bad movie, that's fine. If you liked it, that's fine. It's your thing. You know, it's like me. I mean, but the difference, like with me, is like I'm a huge Godzilla fan, right? And they're going to turn out their 30th Godzilla movie this year. But within the context of those 30, I can definitely tell you the ones that are shit and are unwatchable. You know, I'm not going to sit and tell you that all of these things are great and perfect and masterpieces, because they're not, son. But, you know, some of them are just bad funny and you can enjoy them. Some of them are just bad. And then some of them are just good, fun movies. Fast X didn't land anywhere near where I would call it even a good, fun movie.
I enjoy some Godzilla stuff. I like the Shin Godzilla stuff that they redo. So like Shin Ultraman was good. Shin Kamen Rider was great. Shin Godzilla was great. Like they were fun. They were enjoyable. They weren't the best Godzilla thing ever, but they were good. I enjoyed it, and it was well worth my money. And those, I just ordered Shin Kamen Rider. Great movie. Really.
Watching Godzilla basically puke on Tokyo and light it on fire, I was like, that's crazy, man. I love that scene so much. So yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, but no, Fast X, I'm definitely done with the franchise. I'm out. I really only went because I was just feeling really like cooped up in the house. I have got to get out and do something, and that was the only thing that was playing here. So it's like, okay, I'm gonna watch it.
I knew what I was getting into, and I like cars. So for me, it was cool to see those nice cars and souped up cars. And I have a problem because I like that stuff.
It's not a problem. It's not a problem. I like a couple of the movies. I like a couple of them. I Tokyo Drift is my favorite. But I that's the only one that I own on Blu-ray. Like that's the only one I'll ever own. Because I'll never watch a fast movie again.
I know exactly what I'm going to bring if I'm ever at a con up in Michigan. I was going to bring you a nice Blu-ray set of Fast and Furious.
Oh yeah, we can. I'll take him down to my cousin's house and we can put him in the skeet shooter and just.
Once I give it to you, you can do whatever you want with it.
That's right.
But I'm definitely going to film your reaction for my TikTok. I'm going to enjoy that so much.
Oh,
Tom.
Yeah, this has been a really, not just based on me saying it, this has been a really rough year for movies. A lot of stuff has supremely under.
Indiana Jones was rough.
It's not good.
The only good thing about Indiana Jones is that Topps for Throwback Thursday has done it in the Indiana Jones style for their cards. That's the only good redeeming quality.
That was really disappointing. Really disappointing.
I didn't see it. I don't have a desire to. It just looks bad.
I can't even tell you to see it. Like, you know, a lot of people were like, they didn't want to see Rise of Skywalker. I'm like, dude, just You're going to see it. Just wrap up your fucking 40-year history here. You've been watching it since the beginning. Watch the ending. You'll be fine. But this one, I don't think you need to see it. I really don't think anyone really needs to see it. There's no value in it to the franchise, like at all. So no, I don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
I really was never invested in Indiana Jones collectively.
Oh man, I was all about it when I was a kid, right? Because I grew up with Raiders of the Lost Ark, and then we get basically a freaking horror movie out of Temple of Doom. Like, holy shit, this is my childhood is all kinds of on crack right now. So I was big on Indiana Jones. I don't love the third one, Last Crusade. I don't love it as much as people do. I like it. I don't love it. Crystal Skull, the more I think about it, like I don't like Crystal Skull, but the more I think about it, it's better than the last one. It's better than Dial of Destiny. And I know a lot of people don't like Shia, whatever. I understand that. There's actors I don't like, but he wasn't the distraction and the problem of Crystal Skull. But I think it's better. I think it's better. Like my rating is in order: Raiders, Temple, Crusade, Skull, and then Dial at the bottom. That's it. That's your Indiana Jones official list, folks.
Until they do 6.
No, it's done now. It's done. There's nothing you can do.
And then I haven't seen this one either. What do you think of the Barbie movie?
Oh, I'm dying for Barbie. Like I am dying for Barbie. I thought it came out this week and I was ready for it, man. And then it turns out it was that stupid Mission Impossible movie. I was like, oh, God damn it. So I have to wait one more week. So yeah, I am all about this Barbie movie, man. And it is going to be wildly amazing, or it is going to be wildly terrible. And I don't know which one it's going to be until I'm there, but I'm there. I'm going Thursday night. I'm going to be in there first show before all the meatballs, get in that evening. I'm going to go to like the 3:00 show.
I think I'm going to go, but I think I'm going to wait 2 weeks just to let everybody get it out of their system. And then I'm excited to see it because I think it's going to go one way or the other too.
Yeah.
But
it's going to be a monster, or it's going to be garbage.
Look,
or it could be like you just talked about. It could be so bad that it's good. That is also a possibility. But I want to go Thursday because I don't want spoilers. I know there's going to be weird spoilers and Easter eggs like all over the internet. And I'm like, fuck it. I'm just going to go get it out of the way because I want to see Oppenheimer too. But Oppenheimer, there's no spoilers. We know he builds the bomb. It goes off.
What?
We win the war.
Why'd you root for me?
Spoiler alert. Spoiler.
I didn't know how it ended.
Yeah. Hey, Cedric, we are currently live, at least for a little bit longer. So yeah, you can ask questions. We're just kind of shooting the shit right now. We're kind of wrapping up, but yeah, like Oppenheimer, there's no spoilers. So I want to get Barbie out of the way, so that I can not have to worry about it. But the trailers look so amazing. They couldn't have cast it better. Like Jesus Christ, how perfect is that?
I mean, Margot Robbie, she is just so
perfect.
Good.
Perfect.
She is just so good. Ryan Gosling, I think, is Ken.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep. Well, he's one of the Kens. Yeah.
And then Will Ferrell is like the head of Mattel.
Right.
I mean that's just brilliant in so many ways.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a super meta movie and I love it. It looks amazing. So I'm ready. And then I'll go see Oppenheimer whenever. But yeah, Barbie, man. That's what I've been waiting for a long time.
I'm excited for Oppenheimer because I'm curious how Christopher Nolan's going to do it because I don't think he's done something like that yet.
Oppenheimer, yeah, they're talking about how it's like almost a horror movie, which sounds awesome to me because it's kind of dry material. Hey, we're building a bomb. So you kind of have to really find a way to punch up that material. You've got good actors in it, which is good. So we'll see. I'm not huge on Nolan stuff, very hit and miss, but this looks like it should be pretty intense. So I'm ready for it.
I forgot what Christopher Nolan's one of his first movies was.
It was like Memento way
Yeah,
back in the day. Yeah.
that movie was trippy. That movie was trippy.
It's
I
like
love that movie.
I like Interstellar, but I don't like the ending. Ending kind of goes into a weird place. Um,
He
Inception
did.
is awful. Inception is just shit. What a garbage movie.
I like the concept of Inception.
Concept is great. It's the execution that completely falls apart because they just keep changing the rules every time. Oh, well, we'll just go down one more. Well, if we go down one more, we're never coming back. Well, we'll go down one more. Okay. Well, we go down one more. Oh my God, that's the bottom of the. Well, yeah, we'll go down one more. Okay. Fuck. This is stupid.
Because I didn't think it was an acting problem.
No, it's never. That's never an acting problem. That's just execution of the story. Um, you know, it's like with Interstellar. Interstellar had no problems other than I just don't like the ending where Matthew McConaughey drifts through the library, and sees his kid through the library books. Like, like this is weird. We went from this like high tech sci-fi realism thing to some sort of quantum, parallel universe thing. Like they're not meshing for me. So I liked it, but yeah.
So Cedric, I am streaming on YouTube and Facebook. I don't stream on Twitch.
The tube, man, the tube.
But yeah. No. I'm really excited for the Barbie movie. It's gonna be a blast. I'm super stoked for it. I like Mattel. I'm sorry to say it. I like them. I think I grew up playing with their toys, and that's just it. And my mom's a huge Barbie fan, so it'll be fun. It'll be fun to go see it, and I'm pretty sure that me and my friends are not going to be the only 30-year-olds in there. So, and not the only 30-year-old men in there either.
The crazy thing that I went and saw Indiana Jones, right? That place was filled with dudes that were like 70 and 80 years old. Not just dudes, girls too. 70 and 80 years old. That was 90% of the audience where I went to see it. And then there was a handful of people like my age because we grew up with it, right? It's like that's normal, like 40s and 50s. That's kind of normal. There were no kids in that movie. No teenagers, no 20s, no millennials, like nothing. It was just old dudes and like people that grew up with it in the 80s. Like that was the entire audience. So I was like, oh, this is going to be problematic. And it obviously became problematic because kids don't give a shit about Indiana Jones.
So it's interesting because this week I just went to go see a Miyazaki movie, Studio Ghibli, and the audience was primarily my age. I'm 30. And so, I don't think that's going to be a problem on a Tuesday night at 7:00. It was 50 people who were like 30, 40, maybe 50. Mm-hmm. But I don't think that's a problem for that because I think that's kind of the demographic because
sure, yeah.
Nausicaa is for my age. And also when I have kids, I'm going to be introducing them to that movie. And when that movie is, out, I'm going to be taking my kids to it. So, but I also think it's different because it was like a special event. But mm-hmm. I get the point, what you're saying. Is that it is probably going to be an issue, but I don't run those companies. Maybe we should do a hostile takeover, you and me.
Yeah, I'm just going to make my just like comics, man. I'm going to make my own shit. I'm just going to do it myself. Find a way to do it myself. There's no point. I mean, the whole Hollywood system is about to collapse anyway. So don't get real excited about like making movies anytime soon because it's all about to collapse and be rebuilt. So, we got to kind of see how the Phoenix rises from the ashes, whatever we get.
Oh man, I don't like this. I'm an investor in like Netflix and Peacock and Paramount. This is not good for me.
Bad. It's bad for all of that. All of that is bad. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, when you start talking about the guy sells Squid Games to Netflix for some flat fee and they make $1 billion off it and don't give him any residuals, fuck you guys. Like that's insane. That's batshit insane.
But whose fault is that in reality?
It's no one's fault because he signed the contract. And this is the same thing we have in comics, right? Somebody made something for Marvel, Marvel owns it. We all understand that. But when you eliminate any sort of moral ground to something like that, and it's not like he sold it for flat rate and they made 100 million, like, right? Like that's a lot, but $1 billion they've made off of this thing. They're doing a sequel. Like, you can't kick this guy $1 million for hey, thanks for making us $1 billion. Here's $1 million off the the sole of my shoe. It's awful. It's awful. And that's what these guys with comics have been complaining about for so many years. Hey, I created all this crap you're putting on the screen that's now you $700 million every movie. Why am I not getting any sort of kickback? And then when they do, it's usually like, oh, here's a check for like $1,000. Thanks. Bye. And then it's gone. So that's the fight right now. It's the fight in comics. It's the fight in creator owned. It's the fight in the Hollywood system. It's a disaster right now. And all of these guys that are at the heads of these companies, they have fucked around for a long time, and they are about to find out.
Maybe. I mean, look, you know what it is? I'll throw something out there where I don't think you're ever going to get a show like Seinfeld, and not the actual show itself, but the contract side of it, where Jerry and Larry David have made more money off of Seinfeld selling it to Netflix, Hulu,
Sure.
or whoever wants it in syndication. Same thing with Two and a Half Men. They've made more money than actually when it was live.
Sure, absolutely.
Because
and that's one of the complaints right now. The what's I don't know what his first name is, but Gunn's brother, he was on Gilmore Girls, and Gilmore Girls is on Netflix, and he's not seeing any residuals from Gilmore Girls being on Netflix. So again, it's just the system is the system's fucked, and it's going to get bad. It's going to get really bad.
I don't know. I think I'm going to be fine as an investor.
And especially with Hollywood over here going like, well, look, we'll just scan you and pay you for your face, and then we'll just, digitize you into movies for all time. Like, yeah, that's going to go over well. That's really going to go over well. Like, Hollywood is so absolutely head up their ass right now. It's mind blowing.
Did you also think that Hollywood is over optioned also?
As far as what?
I think Hollywood, where I think in comics in particular, a lot of people have gotten a lot of options, but to get something optioned to being optioned to being made into something is a whole different ballgame. And I think a lot of
options are strategic, as well as, yes, we want to make your thing, but they're also strategic. They'll pay somebody for an option just so that some other studio won't get it. So, there's strategy in the option system. But when you're paying a lot of money for options and, trying to eventually then maintain those options, they have to pay them again. It's like, what's the point? Like, just if you're not going to make it, let somebody else make it. So.
No, what I'm getting at is that I think a lot of creators, at least what I think, is that a lot of creators might have an option for something and they think that their thing is going to get made. And
oh no, trust me, they all know that the chances of it getting made are like 1%. They're all very well aware of it, but they're happy to take a check for 10, 20 grand and be like, yeah, go ahead, make a thing. And then in 5 years, when it doesn't happen, they'll be like, well, you can give me another 20 grand.
Fair enough. It's just like the way people speak. Say, my book got optioned, and I'm like, great, and then I'm so excited, and like,
that's awesome, 100%. That's awesome, but that doesn't mean shit. I mean, they literally filmed a pilot for Lock and Key, and they threw it away. It started over. So eventually it got made, but it just doesn't mean anything.
No, my point is that everybody in like the comic world is like, I'm getting my thing into a movie, and I'm like, probably not. Like. But
listen, Todd McFarlane should be able to snap his fingers and make a Spawn movie, and he can't. So you little guy in the indie scene with your comic that no one's heard of, chances are very slim you're going to see. You might get some money out of it, and congratulations. But to actually see it hit the big screen or the streaming screen, that's 1%.
So let me ask you this, and you could take the fifth at any point you want to. What do you think the next comic thing is going to be from comic book to movie?
Oh, I don't even know. I don't even know what the comic book marketplace is anymore. I don't go to comic book stores. I don't pay attention to anything that's being
I have a theory.
produced.
I think Gun Honey is the next one.
I don't even know what that is.
It's hard crimes. It's like out of hard crimes, and it's Charlie, not Stickley, somebody. I forget the guy's name, but he has a lot of crime novels,
I'm already bored.
and it's a revenge story.
I'm
So
already bored.
it's easy. The reason why I like Gun Honey is that it's 4 issues,
Hmm?
and then they did the next series, so it's a mini series where it's 4 issues, and so it's not a big investment. Where to buy it in previews, it's gonna run you like $12 for 4 issues, and that's why I
Sure.
like Gun Honey, because it's cheap and it's well written and it's simple and it's an easy story, and I think it's just the easy to option and do a Netflix series or a Hulu or Paramount or whatever they want to do with it, because I think it's pretty self-explanatory. But I think it's the next big one. But that's just me. But I could be wrong. But
Like I said, I literally have never heard of it. That's but again, I haven't heard of. We did. I was on a show with somebody else last night. We were doing like somebody made a list of like the top 20 or so comics of 2023 so far, and outside of some of the Marvel and DC stuff, there was a whole bunch of Image books in there, and I was like, dude, I have never heard of any of this. Like, of the 20 books, I had heard of maybe 5 of them, and they were Marvel and DC things. I don't know what any of this other stuff is. So I don't have time to be paying attention to what other people are doing like that.
the only
Because I don't
image
go to the comic book store. That's the thing. I don't go to the comic book store. My comic book store is basically Kickstarter. I will scroll through Kickstarter all the time to see what's there. Just like I said, Joe Benitez launched his Lady Mechanica today, so that's awesome. But to go to the comic book store and just be like, here's random dudes making random stuff, that system doesn't work for me anymore.
the only Image book I know, and it started on Kickstarter, is Moonshine Bigfoot. And the concept is that it's Bigfoot, and all he wants to do is make moonshine, and the government's on his tail. And it's muscle cars, moonshine, and running moonshine. And it's a stupid sounding book, but it sounds awesome. The reason why I backed it is that it was $16 for all 4 issues.
Sure, that's all right.
So it was cheap, and it sounded like an awesome book. And it was, I think, Zach Howard and Steve Ellis, who've been around for a while. And I think
Sure, yeah, I know Zach Howard. Yeah,
And so Zach Howard's done stuff for Marvel, and I'm like, it seems like a good team, and it seems like a fun book, so why not, right? It seems like this is the book to take us back on, and that's how I viewed it, and I made me stop on Kickstarter, but it was on Kickstarter first.
Yeah.
If it was on Image's website, wouldn't touch it.
There's a lot of stuff that's been on Kickstarter that's moving into, publishing areas. So that's one of those things. That's one of the advantages of Kickstarter is you get to make whatever you want. And now there's publishers that are like, yo, you want to bring it over here now? And you're like, yeah, it's the option, right? It's like, yeah, take it, go. It's already done. Take it, do what you want with it, make it happen. It's like Antarctic Press. Antarctic Press is going to be starting to print Critter again in January. They're going to start from the beginning, just start running the series monthly. So that's going to be great. That'll be awesome. We'll be back in comic book stores again for the first time in 7 years. And we'll be launching the Critterverse again in January as well. So it'll be nice dual marketing. It'll be great.
And so I'm not going to push it too much on that, but you're going to still be on Kickstarter.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
With Critter, and then you're going to be
everything we do is Kickstarter. The only thing that they're doing is the old books. They're taking the original series that we did and just running it 1 through 25 or whatever we're at. And they're just going to run it monthly. Yeah.
No, I asked because I think it's sometimes confusing when things get to publishers.
Yeah, people. I've told people this, and they're like, "Oh, you sold it to AP?" I'm like, "No, they're just publishing it. It's no different than when I was with Aspen. They just published the book under their banner. So it'll be great to put it in front of new people's eyes. When we made the announcement, it was really cool because we were getting all kinds of people on Facebook like, "Yo, I remember Critter from back in the day," and I'm like, "No, you don't. You can't tell me that." And they're like, "No, yeah, I've actually got some of these books." I'm like, "That's wild. That's super crazy." And then there were people that just didn't know what it was at all. And they were like, "Well, that looks really awesome." And I'm like, "Of course it's awesome." So yeah, so it's good. Should be really good. Should be really good. And with eyes on that, and then Critter running at the same time on Kickstarter, it could really change the dynamic of our Kickstarters. So, just kind of fingers crossed.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Anyway, I don't want to occupy any more of your time. It's always fun to talk to you.
Yeah,
You're always
man.
nice to me. I appreciate it. Um, I do need to go buy at least one of those hollow foil critter books. I'm gonna regret if I don't.
You got a couple hours.
I got like an hour and 48 minutes to do it. Which I'm gonna do it immediately after we're off the air. I don't feel like doxing my credit card to everybody. But the nice thing about your campaign, and I want to say this, is that it does come after and it ends in August, which gives me
Ends
time.
August 7th. Yeah, August 7th.
So the bill isn't due today, which is very helpful. And I think sometimes people don't realize that on Kickstarter, the bill is due at the end. It's not due at the front, which is what Indiegogo does.
Correct.
And there's advantages to both. I'm not here to discuss either one, but obviously it is very, very helpful when a bill is due later and not front and center.
Sure,
So
absolutely.
that's all I have to say on that. I will be getting at least one of them, potentially two, because who knows, maybe I'll flip one of them. I don't know. I got to pay for this somehow. This show is not free, guys. I would like to be able to afford a 6-pack of beer. But anyway, I do want to give you a chance to self-promote. So where could people find you, hit you up, bother you, disturb you?
Yeah, I mean, we're everywhere, all the key places. You can basically look up Big Dog Inc. Anywhere you go, you'll find us. We kind of live on Facebook. That's where we do everything. And then it kind of filters out to Instagram, Twitter, BDI Comics. We have a Patreon, patreon.com/Big Dog Inc. We are on TikTok, but there's nothing there yet. We'll probably be getting a little more serious into that towards the end of the year and into next year. But yeah, that's the primary. And then on Kickstarter, you can follow us on Kickstarter as well. That way, whenever we do a project, you'll get a notification as well. So go over to Kickstarter and you can follow us there too.
Yeah, and I'm just going to keep saying it, and I'm going to say it again and again and again. I've been saying it for 4 years. If you like something, you need to support it. And in particular, when something is on Kickstarter, you need to actually financially back it and pledge, because that's how stuff gets made. And $1 helps, $100 helps, $85 helps, $15 helps. And it makes a huge difference in a lot of ways when you financially pledge. But even going beyond the financials, following people on social media also goes a huge way as well. And that's something too, where you're following people on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, all the social medias. Threads, I guess, is a big thing now. It makes a huge difference in interacting with people on those platforms as well as sharing out campaigns. All that stuff matters, and it is just as important as backing and physically backing. So I recommend everybody do that just as much as throwing money at something. So I can't emphasize that enough. And then about me, and I am all over social media as well. I am Pop Anime Comics on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. On YouTube, I am Pop Anime Comics. You can find me there. You can find me on eBay at Pop Anime Comics Collectibles. I have Buy Me a Coffee if you would like to support independent media, or if you're just looking for really cool comics and baseball cards and trading cards, I have you covered on my eBay store. And I guarantee you, I have merch for you that crosses every freaking checkbox. So that's all I have to say about that. And all that stuff's in the link down below, as well as you can check out Preston's stuff as well. I put that in the description, and the link to the campaign is there too for Tom's book. So go back it, and hopefully you won't be disappointed. So on that note, I will give you the final word.
Yeah, join us. We are on day one. We are at $9,400. We have unlocked first stretch goal. We have 125 backers currently. If we get to 200 backers by noon tomorrow, we will throw in a bonus trading card for a promotional book that we're going to be doing next year. So you guys will get a little freebie promo trading card for the first 200, or if there's more by noon, then that's however many. But we got to be there by noon tomorrow. So if you haven't pledged yet, do so now, and help everybody earn a little bonus item.
Well, I think that is a perfect place to end, and I don't think I could have said that any better myself. Everybody, And that is a wrap.